Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Deborah Peters Show. Of course, my name is Deborah Peters, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have you join me today. Today is an exciting time in history. We're going to be talking about relationships. It's one of my favorite topics, and I think it's probably on most people's minds. How do we demystify our relationships so that they're healthy and fluid and we get our needs met and they work? But before we get into that with my guest, I want to just share a little bit about this show. And thank you for being here. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and definitely thank you for commenting, because whether you're aware of that or not, that really helps the channel. It changes the algorithm and it gets us some attention so other people can find this show too. So I appreciate you doing that. This show is all about raising your consciousness and living life on the leading edge of thought. We do create our own reality, and whatever we put our focus in to is what really starts to show up in our lives. And when you manage your mental, emotional, spiritual path, it changes the dynamic of how you resonate with yourself, your ability to stay connected to your divinity. And then that, of course, goes out into the world and draws back to you all kinds of experiences. So I always say to people, if you don't like the way your life looks right now, change your thinking. And there was actually a book from a long time ago, way back in the day, that was called, As a Man Thinketh, before it was revised. And this is some really old school baseline stuff. And really not a whole lot has changed on that, except for our awareness as a society that, hey, yeah, I can actually change my experiences in life and my reality through how I run my mind and my emotions and my vibration. So today, with that said, today's guest is a wonderful author, Glenn Sandifer, and he's just really on his game when it comes to relationships. So we're going to talk a little bit about part 2 of his book, The Middle Ground, how to get great dating results in a modern world. Is that correct, Glenn?
Yes, if the people can, that is correct.
The people can. Oh my God, that's hilarious. So I thank you for being here again today. I know this is round 2, and I've been just kind of, waiting for you to get this second book done so we could have you back and talk a little bit more about that. How have things been in your side of the world?
Things on our side of the world, things have been great. Since we joined your podcast earlier in the year, as of this recording, we've seen tremendous growth just in adoption of the book, the principles, and our followers just following the Middle Ground book and all of our social media channels. So it's kind of been a whirlwind.
I bet.
Surprisingly, I've really enjoyed the process. I loved writing the book, but I found myself on this journey enjoying this process as well.
That is so cool. And relationships are always the mystery, I think, in people's lives. People have some basic mysteries in their life, or so they think they're mysteries. Relationships and typically money, And I always say that love and money are of the same vibration, and when you get them into alignment, your life can just take on wonderful meaning and expression. So I'm excited for this with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what part of the country are you in? Are you in Nashville?
Still in Nashville. I still have I have recent gifts. My Indiana state. There's a artist that I love, so I wanted to have both where I've both lived for the longest periods of time. Tennessee and Indiana. 2 more are coming, but they won't be on the wall where our guests will be able to see. So.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah,
But
I know.
Music City, Nashville. Love it.
Music City.
Love the town. My wife and I relocated here a number of years back, and we've lived here so long that we now complain about all of the transplants.
Of course you do. Yeah, but transplants are everywhere. I've been working remotely for the last year,
Mhm.
actually, year and a month. And, transplants are everywhere. There's like this migration going
Mhm.
on within America. It's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, where
So,
people are getting the jobs that they want and working in the places that they would like to live. So, I mean, I think the pandemic really heightened that. I had the privilege of growing a sales organization that was 100% remote for the previous
wow.
number of years. And I can tell you one thing, they tell me they're not going back. So,
Yep. It's changed forever.
hmm
That's exciting. So I made some notes when we were prepping for
hmm
today's show, and it looks like we're going to talk about some very interesting concepts that you put together.
hmm
And the first one, I'm just going to kind of lay them out there, and then we can start to unpack them one at a time.
okay.
So the first one is that it's relationships, particularly couples, right? We're talking about couples. um, the idea is to reach the middle ground
Correct.
between you
hmm
and as a couple. So you have them ask some questions, like, who are you, what do you want, and what do you qualify for, which is fascinating.
hmm
And then what does who you qualify for want from you?
hmm
With the divorce rate in the country the way it is, uh, you know, this should really be like a couples coaching pre-marriage.
Sold. I will be at the conference for you, Deborah, as soon as you plan it. I'll I'll do
Yeah,
a
right.
breakout. No, but you're absolutely right because, as most people know, and that's well documented, the book is kind of an exercise out of a divorce for myself. So
Ah,
after coming out of the divorce, I had to do 2 years of work, and that work was very introspective. There couldn't be any blame splaining going on in the market for why it ended. I had to take accountability on why it failed. So it allowed me to go on a long journey, which kind of led to some of the principles we talk about in part one and now specifically in part two. And that
yeah,
that big one is, who are you? So
right.
most people, we don't know who we are. We know who we want to be and purport to be on social media. We know the mask we wear professionally. We know the mask we wear with our friends and who we can actually be ourselves with. But at the
Yeah,
end of the day, most people cannot answer the question of, who are
I know. And I've I did couples coaching for about a decade, years ago, and I felt then that that was the major hurdle in pretty
you?
much every relationship. And it's fascinating to me how I just think it's a social construct, like society is set up to, in such a fashion that that question is never answered. It's
Who
never
are you?
asked. Yeah. It's
Well,
never really asked.
but the question should be asked because everyone who's listening right now has been on a date in the last 3 years. The first question you ask, so tell me about yourself. Most people can't even explain that. They can't
Yeah.
say, hey, I am an athletic mutter who does victory and Viking runs 3 times a week. I love fitness. It's a really big part of who I am. I'm really close with my family, take care of my mother, and hopefully one day I'll be able to have a family of my own.
Sure.
Most every guy that your listeners or have been on a date with, they couldn't explain themselves that clearly and succinctly.
Is that just a guy thing, or is that for women too?
No, it's women too, because women who, from a communication standpoint, as we all know, have more words in a day. So they will eventually get to that. Oh, who am I? That's really a good question. I don't know. Wow, I haven't been asked like that. Why do you put me on the spot? Why don't you answer it? Tell me who you are. Okay, so if I have to answer based on what you said, fitness is important to me. I do work out 3 or 4 times a week. I'm a part of F45. I go there. I have a really good friends. Oh, and I have my dog. My dog is Corgi, and really, I don't know. I hadn't really thought about a family or kids. I don't know what do you think? But anyway, I guess the way that I'm going to say is, so it's just I did a live on this, and we talked about how things go in circles, and sometimes it looks like spaghetti, while men will communicate in a straight line, and that's effective communication on both parties.
Yeah, of course. The thing is, like, that I'd like to unpack there is pretty much everything you said is what they do, things they do. That
Mhm.
still isn't who they are.
Yeah, who are you? I mean, when we talk about who are you in the book, I go through the analogy of Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, fraternity brother, greatest NBA player of all time, based on many. He knew who he was before Nike knew, before North
Yeah.
Carolina knew, and
Yes.
before the NBA knew. And he knew because it was instilled in him by his father and his mother and his
Yeah.
upbringing with his older brother. So, answering the question from Michael Jordan, his mother, his father said he's going to be league MVP, rookie of the year, all NBA first team, all defensive first team, defensive player of the year, multiple time champion, finals MVP. He's going to be all these things. We know because we've had a hand in instilling this confidence and this
That's
ability in him.
right.
Not only that, he's done the work. So what we hear is what he does, but who he is driven. Who he is
There you
grit.
go.
Who he is character. Who he is sacrifice. And when you, a lot of the times when we're doing the introspection on who we are, you have to be able to get out those guiding principles. One thing that I came out of kind of my a couple of sessions with after my divorce care, and that I also went through, as people know, I'm a Christian in the church, was what were your three value statements? So
Right.
for me, those three value statements were family, it was health, and it was freedom. So
Yeah.
those value statements, if you look at any three of those, literally are pointing back to how I operate in my life. And I've been doing that since that process began. And so at the middle ground, what I've done is I had the privilege of coaching individuals as we went through going through this book. And I asked them, what are your three value props? And if you don't have three value props, you need to leave and go write them down and come back next week with that ready to go for the exchange. Because until you know who you are, we don't even know what you want.
100%. 100%. Until you know who you are, how can you know what you want?
Now, what happens today and what's been happening for the last 10, 15 years, and it's, we'll just blame social media. That's easy to do.
Sure.
They'll get you
Let's
click.
do it. Got it.
So social media is the problem. We allow social media and we allow others to tell us
Hmm.
what we want. So in part one of the book, I go through the exercise of explaining both of my grandfathers. Both of my grandfathers came home from World War II. They were both from the state of Mississippi, relocated to the state of Indiana, Northwest Indiana, so Chicagoland. When
Okay.
they did that relocation, they got one woman, married that one woman,
Yeah.
bought a house for that one woman, and that one woman filled up the house with seven kids each.
Yeah.
They were in the same neighborhood, they were in the same union, they were both trades, they had very comfortable middle class lifestyles, and they never dealt with credit up until they died. They died married to the same woman. No kids anywhere on the side, like we hear from all the in this
I
space. Traditional
know.
men were dogs. No kids, no relationships. 100% committed, safe. They didn't have security systems. They had a gun, which is
Yep.
typically a handgun and a shotgun. And if you came into their house and you were drunk or you were high, they would talk to you, sober you up, get you out of the way. If there were kids hanging on the street corner, they would get the kids off the street corner. So those men knew who they were and they
Yeah.
knew what they wanted. They wanted a traditional outcome because coming from surviving World War II is enough, is a statistic in itself. Being able to
Yeah.
be a part of the Great Migration is another statistic. And then to be able to thrive and have a middle class lifestyle for a family is a third statistic. So they've overcome in three areas. So
Yep.
just knowing who you are allows you to have what you want. Now, if they didn't go through that process of knowing who they were, they would never know what they want. They would have just gotten anybody. They would have got a nurse
Yeah.
overseas. They would have just brought someone up on the train from Mississippi. But they were very clear on their vision on what they wanted. I want a traditional outcome. I want 7 to 9 children. They didn't want 24 like each of them came from, but they wanted 7 to 9. So, I think that that's key because in the space, we don't know that. In social media, men say, I want this baddie boss diva who is, you know, 5'7", insert there. And that's what I want. So they don't even know who they are, but they tell the world what they want. And when they come into contact with women, they have this preconceived notion of what
Yeah.
that woman needs to look like, act like, and sound like because social media gives them this false narrative, and
The
they never go.
framework. Yeah.
Yeah, they never get the framework is a great word. They never get the framework on what authentic connection or relationship is.
So, and that becomes a breakdown then generationally because for every generation that is less self-aware of
Hmm.
who they are, um, you can only pass that down to the
Hmm.
next generation, and it's an erosion of understanding your own personal value system.
Yeah. And I think that there has probably been an erosion. We have moved further away from the traditional outcome I just spoke of
Yeah,
than any other time in history. Now, granted, that traditional outcome was available for modern world 2000 years, 19,
sure.
1950 years. So, and then there was a break and there was a change from a societal standpoint, which we talk about in part one, that led to the decisions. When there was a societal change and a societal breakdown, what changed was the family structure, which then
Yeah,
started leading to some of the behaviors. Because there was no way in 1955, regardless of who you weren't self-aware. You had to be
right,
self-aware because you had family, you had parents, you had your family, extended family, your neighborhood, your schools, and then the people in the community. So you had to be very self-aware, and they could tell right then and there who was going to make it and who wasn't. And
hmm,
if you didn't get back on the right track, there was all of that social safety net to help you.
that's right. And there was a real awareness of acceptability. Now we
Hmm.
have no awareness of acceptability. It's like
Hmm.
the lines are blurred, and you just like do anything, and as offensive as it could be, and nobody's going to say anything for a variety of reasons.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that could be the case. But as we talk about what we want, as we go into that, that's chapter two of part two. We talk about the best term that I've heard in the relationship space. I am the table.
I am the table.
I am the table. When, because it goes from the question that men and women both ask on the date, since they don't know how to ask questions on a date. Say, what do you bring to the table? Well, what's the table? I am the table.
I am the
And so
table.
you have a man or a woman who start from that position, which is coded in narcissism, that they are the prize, and by me being in your present, I am doing you a favor. Right there, you'll never be in the middle ground with that person because
Right,
that person has already told you who they are and what their value proposition is. So you have to believe them. And if that's not what you want, have a nice dinner, shake hands, give a kiss on the cheek, and move on your way,
right.
which was what we used to do. But now we don't do that because we've
I
taken
know.
away through social media and dating apps the true impact of rejection and the true character and personality building that's necessary to be functioning in
Yeah,
society.
there's like a numbness to it. It's like, oh, whatever. You don't matter to me because I'll just keep swiping.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, the studies have shown that that has a harmful impact on
Uh-huh.
long-term decision making and cognitive ability because the more dopamine you get released,
Sure.
as long as you're getting your dopamine, you'll never grow. What I don't want is for men and women, men specifically, to go through life on short-term dopamine hits because we need our men out here leading.
You really
So
do.
as I've coached and had the privilege of leading young men and coaching men through the program that informed the book, it was really simple. I was like, what do you want to be? Where do you want your life to be
Hmm.
at 65? What do you want your legacy to be? And if what you're doing, even from a dating standpoint, does not support what you say. So I'm going to need you to spend the next 6 months off the grid and doing the work that's necessary.
Yeah,
Because when you find yourself across a table from a young lady and she says, what do you bring to the table? And you should be able to recite a plan. And if you
sure.
recite a plan, that's going to be different than every guy she swiped on. So now she has to think, oh, am I ready? Do I qualify for this? Am I ready for this? Okay, he's cute. He has a good job. Okay, I like him. All right, I need to get him framed. I need to get in position. All right, let me just kind of figure it out and see. And then as a man, when you do promote and you have a plan that you're actually working towards and you have milestones, your dating outcomes are different.
Of course they are. Plus, I think the other point to this is if you don't know who you are, you're not going to know
Mm,
what you want. And so then there's this blatant disrespect for your own time. Like, why are you on this date to begin with? You just
because I
because you
needed
have
a meal.
nothing better to
I
do,
needed a
or you're
meal, and
you're
you're
hungry?
gonna. I'm hungry. I want to go to STK, and I'm gonna get a meal for my roommate.
Crazy.
It's happening. It's
I
happening
know.
right now, Deborah. They're out. Everyone on the call right now on the video, they know it. They've been a part of it or they've done it.
I know. It's kind of tragic, you know.
Hmm.
I definitely have to say that what you're providing people with is like a breath of fresh air, because I do miss the old school dating uh, process, and I would never do online dating, and whether somebody likes that or not, I just feel like it's hollow, it's shallow. um, I'm so old school. I like that magic, when you
Hmm.
connect with someone, and then once you sit down together, whether and you can determine if this can go anywhere. If it can't, at least you have a new friend in the world.
Yeah.
You don't need to kick them to the curb, and it's like, all right, you don't check my boxes, so therefore I don't need to know you. You just become somebody I used to know.
And I mean, Endeavor, you'll know this, and the audience will know this, especially that have older kids. They're not even getting driver's licenses or permits anymore. I
Right.
My friends and I, 15
Yep.
learner's permit
Couldn't
at the
wait.
DMV or the BMV, depending on where you live and how it's set. We couldn't wait. With my dad or with my mom, like, hey, I need to get my learner's permit. Driving. And then the good thing about that is I knew I could now go on a date. So now it's like, okay, I could drive
Mm,
with
you're
th-
mobile.
here's a word people don't know, a chaperone.
Right.
They don't even know that word. So it's like, all right, let's go. We're going to take you over to the young lady's house. You're going to go to the door, give her a flower, give her mom a flower. The dad says, don't bring my wife any more flowers. Take the flowers back, and then take the girl out, open her door, put her in the car, go on the date. Don't do any funny business. Go out to the movie, go eat the food, and then get picked up. That was 14, 15. Then
Right.
at 16, oh, now I can drive. So
Yeah.
now what is that? What is that incentive for the people that don't know this? Now I have a job, a real job, a summer job, after school job, or an internship, depending on your age. I have to keep up the car. So I'm responsible for my portion of insurance. I have to put gas in it. I have to clean it, vacuum it, put it out. So it teaches you all of these things from a discipline and a consistency standpoint that you take later through life. So
Yeah.
then what's funny is when you go through that and you start dating people and they don't expect any of that, it throws you off. And now I believe we swung the pendulum so far where no one expects anything. I'll just Uber there. What?
Mm-hmm.
You better go pick her up. Nah, I'm just gonna Uber, man. We were just meeting. It's a vibe. I don't even know what that means. What does that mean?
I know. I hear you.
Go pick her up. She hasn't been picked up, so go pick her up. If she's not ready, be like, oh, I'll just wait. I'll wait out in the car. Oh no, go sit in the living room. That means she has to clean up her living room, clean up
Yeah.
her kitchen. That means if she has a roommate, her roommate has to be on the best behavior. You see, there are all these small things that start
Mm-hmm.
to add up to order that people used to value and benefit from.
It sets expectations flat out front.
Hmm. Yes,
And
I mean, no one has any expectations anymore outside of,
no,
yeah, Netflix and chill.
that's absolutely what's missing. And that comes back down to values. This
Hmm.
is how I live my life. You really, especially when you're going to someone's home to pick them up, or when someone's coming to pick you up, in terms of timing and presentation, you really get to know what they're all about. Like,
Hmm.
everything is an opportunity to see if there's red flags, who is this person? And then from a woman's perspective, let's
Hmm.
say they show up in that space of whatever we want to call it, let's say being a gentleman.
Hmm.
How long can they maintain that energy? Does it last for the first, second, and third date? Is it consistent? Because then you really get to see that their words
Hmm.
match their
Match.
actions.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we hear a lot in this space, and what I encourage men to is because you men know, ladies, 6 months. If a man is, we talk about the six type of men who are making marriage decisions and engagement decisions and can support them. Modern men, traditional men, high value men. Anyone else? If I'm not debating. Not debating. You got a male, you
I
got a
love it.
city boy, you got a guy. There's no debate on that. He's not ready for anything that you're quote expecting. But
Yeah.
from a gentleman frame standpoint, gentleman is a part of his character. So it's not going to be something that he has to keep up. So the key is, as you're going into that space as a woman and you're evaluating, you have to say, can you match it? That's why we say, what do you
Right.
qualify for?
Hmm.
In chapter 3 of part 2 of the book, we talk about two different sections. I was able to get it that short, guys. I know it's a long book. But we talk about ring the alarm. Ring the alarm is just a
Mm,
term, but it's an acronym for ring. As a woman, if you're qualifying for that type of man, the 3 men that we talked about, you're reliable, intelligent, nurturing, and generous. And then if you're in one of those 4 frames over a consistent period of time with the man that we spoke of, he will then have to make a decision quick. And he makes a decision in 6 months. He's not going to string you along for 3, 4, 5 years.
no.
If you're those things and he's serious about long-term relationship outcome, which is marriage, what we say at the middle ground, children, and legacy building for the future, he's going to make that decision at that time. And if
Yeah.
you're pretending to be reliable, pretending to be intelligent, and intelligent is not smart or education, it's a cognitive ability. If you're not nurturing or you're not generous, it'll show up in that 6 month time period.
Yeah, absolutely. And sooner,
It'll
definitely
be three
sooner.
months, and you'll be like, "Oh, okay, no, I gotta go.
Yeah.
I gotta go. Nope, no, 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 no. We're good. We're good.
No
We don't. No,
consistency,
because
can't do this. Yeah.
yes, and we talk about that consistency. And then for women, when I didn't forget about you, I say the 4 P's and a wife. So we'll talk about the 4 P's for this audience. What are the 4 P's? Well, everyone talks about it in the space, in the relationship space. A man's supposed to, I'm going to do the voice. The man's supposed to provide and protect. Okay, what else does he do? What do you mean? The man is supposed to do 4 things. And this is for someone who's a Christian, that this is biblically centered. A man is supposed to do provision, protection, profession, and a dirty word, priesthood. Let's go with priesthood for this audience, because people
Let's
hear
do it.
priesthood and they're like, oh my God, you want me to be religious? I gave up on the church. I walked out. I'm spiritual. Fine. Priesthood is about if you have a religious doctrine or been that, are you the center of that? Are you driving that and instilling that into your wife and your kids? Notice I've stopped talking about dating, because in this book, guys, we need to get to the next level.
We've moved on.
We
Yeah.
moved on from your hookup culture. So now I am the one who's leading that as a man, and those 3 men can do that. Then, if you're leading in the area of religious doctrine, it's the moral center. Where are the values coming from? Because the
Sure.
children want to see how dad acts and how dad acts with mom, and if it's consistent with what he says. Then that's how you get great children. I know I'm young. I don't know anything. I only got little ones, but I know one thing: they're not going to see me act the way that I tell them not to.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. And then the final thing is, if it's not a religious doctrine, if it's not a moral center, it will be the direction and leadership. So the direction
Yes.
and the leadership is not a selfish leadership. It is a covering and protection for the household. As
Right.
you lead as a man throughout your household and throughout your life, you're making decisions that keep your family intact and at the
Hmm.
center.
Yeah.
And when you
Safe,
move in that
love.
direction, when you move in that direction, Deborah and audience, you are now going to start seeing the outcome that we're talking about, because the men and the boys and the girls that grow up in that environment, they're not going to play with this foolishness. They're not going to
Right.
be on social media dating. And when they do go out there, they say terms like, there's pee pee in the kiddie pool. What is happening out here? And the reality is, you're not aligned with that person, and you don't qualify for a city boy. I've raised you to be a modern woman. I've raised you to be a traditional woman. I've raised you to be a high value woman. Why are you dealing with a male? If you're going to
And
deal with a male, you're going to get male outcomes, and males mail it in.
that's good. Why do you call them city boys?
City boys, because they're for the city, they're for the streets.
I
Everything,
see.
everything about a
Well
city
said.
boy. City boys are I think we talked about it, audience. Here it is. They're charismatic. They give you great chemistry, and they have
Yeah.
great conversation. We call those the 3 C's. And
Yeah.
those 3 C's are what get a specific group of women caught up for years. And
Sure.
then, because the 3 C's are met, men are now being compared to those 3 C's first, instead of all of the values that we just talked about.
Hmm.
And then the more time you deal with city boys, you start developing city behavior, or for the streets. You start
Yeah.
acting city. You're out. more, you're brunching more, you're girls tripping more, and you're getting off the path of what you said you want as a dating outcome. You're not going to get the outcome you want doing all that stuff.
No, it's in the wrong direction.
Completely wrong.
So we've got just a few minutes left.
Oh
This has
boy.
been fantastic, but so I think we've covered everything except what does who you qualify for want from you?
I think here's the most important takeaway of that. You have now decided to be in a relationship with this person. It's not about you. So this is hard. This is where it gets real hard at the middle ground for people. They're like, I mean, I get what you're saying. Yes, I want a provider. I want a protector. I want pre-SID. But what about me? You're getting all of those things as a byproduct. You have to stop looking at the outcome as the destination and stop appreciating the journey. I talked about how this journey has gone for me since we spoke last. I had to start appreciating other things that I was being asked to do and start finding the joy and finding the opportunity in them. When you're dating and you're meeting someone, you have to figure out, all right, I know who I am, know what I want. I qualify for her, men to women, but what does she want? And
Yeah.
so that's where we start talking about if you're a high value man, which is rare. So why are you spending time with a gal or a city girl?
It's so good.
And what they tell me and what high value men will all agree with is, well, it's just something to do. It's getting you off your path because now you're adopting city behavior. Now you're just with someone who is a gal who is just kind of who's nice, who's sweet, who's regular, who's compassionate, who's considerate, who's available. But you're not going to get along where you need to go in your purpose. If
it's
you are,
killing time.
it's killing time. If you're a modern woman, you need to go find your 50-50 partner. Stop spending time with males who can't hold down a job. Stop spending time with males who have 3 women, 6 kids, and on child support. What are you doing? And so when we start talking about what do you qualify for and what they want from you, you can then start saying, all right, I'm spending as a high value man, I spent too much time with city girls and with gals. I need to go figure out what a high value woman wants. What does she want? And then we know that based on what we believe at the middle ground, she wants a purpose to align with. She's not going to do all this stuff and give up her life. And we say that modern women are the ones who transition to high value the quickest. Is she's not going to give up her stuff if you're just out here still trying to figure it out. If you're still messing with 1, 2, 3, or 4 different women, if you have a roster and you expect me to come and be a part of a roster, I know I'm good. I have options. So why would you set yourself up for that hard decision, especially when you know in 6 months all it's going to take is to be able to find that woman who is reliable, intelligent, nurturing, and generous. So let's move in the appropriate direction to get the appropriate outcome that we're looking for.
I think what you're doing is, what you're saying about relationships and these values is really a recipe for, how to design your life. It's not just a recipe for relationships. It's just like get to know yourself. Who are you? And then what are you creating? And then being aware of that and sticking to it, not deviating from it by every shiny little object that shows its face.
Yeah. And that takes discipline. And the discipline we spoke about was developed from the ages 13, 14, 15 on. And unfortunately, just because of the breakdown of the family, we don't have that. It is still not too late, regardless of your background.
Thank you.
We believe at the middle ground, you can get the outcome that you want. And by following these 4 steps and answering these 4 questions, you will be that much closer to it.
That's incredible. So, okay, how do people find you and how do they get your books?
Yeah, so they find me on our website. We're at themiddlegroundbook.com. There you can purchase the book through Amazon for paperback. We're also on Audible and Kindle. And then we're also available on Google Play Books and Apple Books. We're on the core 4 social media, The Middle Ground Book for Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and we're on Middle Ground Book for Instagram. Instagram is where we've seen the most growth, and YouTube is where we put all of our long form videos. The Middle Ground Reacts, The Middle Ground Live every Friday at 12 Pacific. And just check us out.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys got to get this book. I mean, this is like, it's a disruptor to the nonsense that's going on. And I just so appreciate you so much for taking the time to as you went through your own healing journey, actually write this for people because of what you experienced and the outcome that you created for your new life.
Mhm.
It's admirable, really.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate
Yeah,
those
my
kind words,
pleasure.
Deborah.
Yeah, my pleasure. Wow, this has been fantastic, and I, definitely need to get you back again and have some more conversations around this because I think it's really, really powerful. What I'd like to explore, maybe in another podcast, is um, what the impact of this, the ripple effect of using your system for your relationships has on the quality of life for your children.
Mhm.
Maybe we can talk about that next time.
Yes, that would be excellent.
That'd be
I would
really
love to do
cool.
that. Mhm.
Cool. I'll have my assistant get you set up. That would be fantastic. Cool. Very good. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Glenn. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all the viewers for taking the time to tune in. And remember to like, to share, to comment, and to let us know what you took away from this podcast today. I'd be very interested in seeing that. And remember, stay aligned, stay alert, and stay awake. You guys have a blessed day.